You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where we're going to be wrapping up the T20 World Cup from 2021, a tournament that Australia won, sort of deservingly, I think, in the end. You know, they were definitely in the top 5 teams. I am Jack Hope. I'm joined by Max Rowe Brown. Max Rowe Brown, it's good to have you back after your trip to Lanzarote.
Hello. Yeah, I'd say it's good to be back, but that would just be a stone cold lie, wouldn't it? It's grey and it's cold over here.
And Max and I are joined by Ross Legg. How you doing, Ross?
Yeah, I'm pretty good, thanks, mate. Pretty good. I think the people get to look forward to a fantastic interview.
Yes. Yeah. So on this show, basically what we're going to do is we're going to run through our moment of the tournament, our player of the tournament, our flop of the tournament, our best 11 or our combined 11 between the four of us. And if you're listening on the podcast, the audio, there's an interview with Mark Watt at the end, which is very funny. And so you should listen to that. If you're on YouTube, that'll be a separate video. That's the Cricket Podcast for this week. Ross, what are the messages for our listeners before we get into that?
If you're watching this on YouTube, you should like this video, subscribe to our channel. We're on the road to 10K. I think, 8,750 at the moment. So we'll boost that to 10,000 by the time the Ashes rolls around.
It's quite tight, that window.
That is you've got to dare to dream. You've got to dare to dream.
I tell you what, though, if New Zealand, India is amazing, it could happen.
Yeah, it could happen. We are also sponsored by Woodstock. If you use code TCP25, you get 25% off their gear. They've got a brilliant set of cricket bats that you will absolutely love and hit way more runs with. And you should follow us at the Cricket Pod on Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah, and patreon.com/the Cricket Pod. We have a new Patreon in, and I'll read their name out at the end of the first half of this show to thank them. If you are a patron, you will ask all your questions. No, we will answer all your questions. We won't ask you any questions. Unless you want us to ask you questions, then we'll do that. We'll do anything for money. And we have a data set for the whole of the IPL if you want to play cricket analyst or be a real cricket analyst. $5 a month. Was it $7 Canadian?
Yeah, that's great value. Great value. Just think, Dan Weston's gone from a budding analyst to a proper analyst. He went first class to UAE to work on the Bengal Tigers.
Yeah,
that's what you could be.
That could be you with that data. Let's get into this T20 World Cup thing then. Ross, you and I, we did the post-match show yesterday. We talked about it a lot, but we didn't get Max's thoughts, did we? Max, why don't you kick the show off with your general thoughts on the T20 World Cup and the winners?
Yeah, well, I don't think anyone really expected it, apart from, I assume, some Australians who would have told you that they saw it coming all along. But I mean, you have to take your hat off, really, don't you, to a team that, after getting pounded by England early on, turned it around and absolutely, well, by the end, I'd say, yeah, definitely deserved it. I mean, they were comfortably the better team in the final. Well, it was a bit of a rear end action in the semi-finals.
Rear end action,
yeah. As Matthew Wade put Shaheen to the sword, and I on the background of what?
Sorry, a rear end action with
rear
Matthew
end.
Wade.
Rear guard action.
Shaheen
That's what I wanted to say, wasn't it? A rear guard action. Never mind. Whatever. Yeah, I mean, on the backdrop of, people saying they're past it and us saying they're past it, and David Warner having an absolutely dreadful IPL and relinquishing control of the Sunrisers and dropping himself or being dropped, whichever way around it went. You have to say it's what a turnaround for him personally, and well done to the Australians, even though it's like spitting poison to say that.
Yeah, well, they won the matches that mattered, and that's how you win the World Cup, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it's that's as simple an answer as you could give. They beat Pakistan, they beat New Zealand when it mattered. They got punished by England, pumped by England. Does a team that gets battered that badly deserve to win the World Cup? No, they don't. But that's not the world we live in. We live in a world where Australia are champions.
And we're going to live in a world where Australia have battered England 5-0 very shortly. So it's not getting any better.
Yeah. No, it's cricket, isn't it? If the best team was definitely going to win, if India were going to turn up and win, like I predicted,
It would have been boring, wouldn't it?
It would have been boring. That's not why we watch sport. We watch sport for redemption stories. And you can't say that Stoinis, Marsh, Zampa winning the World Cup wasn't sort of fun. If you take Warner and Smith out of the equation, just put them to one side for a moment, because that isn't fun. That's like, come on. Steve Smith just won the T20 World Cup. Come on. Yeah. That's ridiculous. But Zampa, Stoinis, Marsh, they're players who, one of them described himself, Ross, as you said yesterday on the show, as the most hated man in Australia a couple of years ago. Zampa was playing Essex League cricket in 2015, I think. Stoinis, we have a show called What's a Marcus Stoinis, I think, from a couple of years ago. He was in the 2019 World Cup, but nobody knew what he was for.
Now the answer is one of the best finishers in world cricket.
They've kind of reinvented themselves to be actually useful T20 players. Maybe because they at one stage or another in their career were slightly, they were jokes. People have underrated them. Oh, Ross, you're laughing, but nobody with a straight face. Nobody with a straight face could tell me in 2019, 2018, last year, that I would be saying in 5 minutes' time that Adam Zampa's my player of the tournament. Nobody could convince me of that, but he has been, and that as a redemption story, or as a story of human endeavour and spirit, and really liking coffee and having a good time with your mates. Those three winning the World Cup is a good story. That fundamentally is heartwarming. It's a nice thing to have happened to them. So it's not all bad if you're an England fan. Enjoy those players. They're pretty fun guys. Anyone else have any final thoughts before we get into the meat of the pod?
Move on.
Right, moment of the tournament. We're just going to go in a circle. We're going to do moment of the tournament. We're going to do player of the tournament. We're going to do flop of the tournament. Then we're just going to keep going in a circle for the best 11. But we'll explain how that actually is going to work later, because I don't think we really understand. Moment of the tournament, though, that's very easy. Max, you're to my left, clockwise, anti-clockwise, going round. Player of the tournament for you.
Player of the tournament for me. Well,
and why? Don't just give us a name.
Yeah, well, you've said it already, and I think it would be difficult to argue otherwise. Really, from my point of view, is that it's got to be Adam Zampa, isn't it? Surely, it's got to be Adam Zampa. 13 wickets, barely anyone managed to score any runs off him, and just having those 4 overs every game that you can bank on that are just not going to go for any runs just gives you such a good platform as a bowling side. And when you've got it's just the perfect foil to the Australian attack with the excellent power play that they have, to then have Adam Zampa come on and just strangle teams, and he did it brilliantly and absolutely just was probably the main reason that those scores that they were chasing down in those games, whatever, people will be like, oh yeah, they just won the toss or whatever. But having Adam Zampa able to strangle teams like he did meant that those scores were chaseable, and they won those games with an over to spare in the end. And I think without Adam Zampa being able to tie things down, you're looking at having to actually score maybe 8-10 off the last over, and suddenly things get a bit jittery. It's a difference maker for me.
If you swapped, not just their performances and numbers, but if you swapped Ish Sodhi into the Australia team yesterday, I think New Zealand win the World Cup if they had Zampa instead of Sodhi.
Yeah,
but they didn't, and I think he made a huge difference. I don't have to say anything. That's nice for me. Ross, who was your player of the tournament?
I'm going to have to go with one of the Pakistan players because I thought they were absolutely brilliant throughout the tournament up until the semi-final, where unfortunately the coin
toss. Really
toss
throughout the tournament, then, was it?
Well, throughout 6 of the 7 games they played, or whatever it was. Fine. But there's that bit. We always talk about Pakistan in terms of which Pakistan's going to turn up, and it's almost like the toss of a coin of, are they going to be absolutely brilliant, or are the wheels going to fall off? And it's always like these 10 over stints. And for a while, they kept on tossing, and it kept on coming up trumps for them until the semi-final. But someone who was there the whole way through and was consistently reliable and was another spinner who kind of has gone under the radar, I think, under Shaheen Afridi, Babar Azam, Mohammad Rizwan, and that's Shadab Khan. And Shadab Khan actually continuously bowled really, really well for Pakistan. Limited, kind of in that Zampa role, right, that we talked about, the middle overs, bowling in the difficult period where people have to go after you. And actually, his whole approach has been fantastic. And he couldn't have done more in the semi-final, right? We talk about Pakistan having a difficult game, but he took 4 wickets in that semi-final for 26. I mean, as a leg spinner, you're not going to do much better than that in a semi-final. So, yeah, my player of the tournament is Shadab Khan.
That's very good. There's 2 leg spinners. It's the age of leg spin. And also, you've just described the middle overs of T20 cricket as the Zampa role. That's how much the legend of Zampa has grown. He's gone from Essex League to having a role named after him in T20 cricket.
The Zampa Zone.
The Zampa Zone. That's definitely, Zampa Zone. We're going to keep that rolling forward.
Moment of the tournament. Z's on the opposition.
Moment of the tournament. Maximus Road Round.
Tournament. There's a few. It was quite a good tournament for moments, wasn't it? There's a few that I think you could probably look at. There was Mitchell's ridiculous save on the boundary, that ramp from Matthew Wade. I made my Guerrilla Cricket debut. That was exciting. On a personal note, that was a moment of the tournament. But for me, I've got to take it right back to the early days, and Curtis Campher's 4-ball blitz, the absolute carnage of 4 wickets in 4 balls.
That's niche.
Including an awesome display of reviewing from the captain as well. 2 of those wickets were overturned on review, and it was brilliant. It got kind of the World Cup off to a really exciting start. Even it was Ireland, Netherlands. Who's tuning into that? But Curtis Campher's just taking 4 wickets and 4 balls. Everyone tune in. What's the associate cricket? It's a riot.
You're a true cricket fan, aren't you? There, Max. That is
DRS reviews. That's my favourite moment of the World Cup. A successful DRS review. Ross, what's your moment?
Again with Max, kind of going back to almost the start of the World Cup, but how bloody good was Shaheen Afridi's first over against India? Like that, that is a curtain raiser to the Super 12. Was unbelievable. And regardless if you're an Indian fan, a Pakistan fan, any cricket fan, that was unbelievable. It was the crowd was electric. The occasion couldn't have been bigger. And he came in rocketing at 90 miles an hour, removes KL Rahul and Rohit Sharma with 2 unplayable deliveries. It was perfect as an opening spell.
Yeah, it was. It was pretty phenomenal. It was like going from 0 to 100 miles an hour. Almost literally, if you're the ball.
And no one ever thinks of it from the ball's perspective, do they?
All relativity.
Do you know what, lads? I don't have a particularly good moment at the top. I'm going to be honest. I don't think it was a tournament for great moments. I think a lot of it was a little bit of a grind. I think the toss bias didn't help. I think the fact that some of the teams had no idea what was going on didn't help. And there was a little bit of a lack of upsets, weren't there? That's normally what I zero in on. Pakistan beating India, that's a bit of an upset, bearing in mind they're 13-0 down or whatever it was in World Cups. Scotland beating Bangladesh felt like an upset, and then Bangladesh did the Bangladesh, and now it seems like it was obvious that Scotland, they only beat them by 6 runs. What was going on there? That's sort of how you look at that result. I think, maybe the best moment of the tournament was actually just Papua New Guinea's kit, rocking that on the world stage. The palm trees.
It is bold.
The orange.
It is a very bold one. Yeah.
The sunrise tequila of tequila sunrise of cricket kits. That was pretty good. Yeah, in terms of actual cricket, the 2 semi-finals, both of them were awesome. I think they were genuinely like cracking cricket matches. And in a tournament that didn't have loads of them, it was nice that 2 of them came in the knockout matches when it mattered most, and all the eyes of the world, excluding Indian eyes, were on those games. So that's what I say. What does that bring us on to? What was we've done players,
flops.
We've done moments, flops of the tournament, Maximilian.
Oh, you said it already, Jack. Bangladesh, just as a concept, let alone as a team. Dark horses, supposedly. I think some people said spinning tracks could be their time. They need to just go away and throw everything out and start again because they're an abomination.
There was a very funny meme that went round, and it was like 2 pictures of Bangladesh celebrating their 5-0 and their 4-1 wins over Australia and New Zealand in the run up to this World Cup. And then, like, I can't remember what it was. The general point was, like, who the fuck did this help? Because the 2 teams that obviously made the final were the teams that they beat. And that, you know, like, obviously that isn't great preparation. It doesn't come starker than that, does it? If you beat the 2 finalists 5-0 and 4-1 2 months before the tournament, and then you get there and they romp away from you and you're left in the gutter. I can't think of anything worse than Bangladesh, or even remotely similar. I mean, you could say Ireland. They weren't great, were they?
No.
Were there any individual players? Maxwell wasn't great until the final. Then he got 28, redeems himself a little bit.
From my point of view, I thought ultimately the West Indies didn't do themselves justice in this tournament. We've got massive names, right? Chris Gale, Andre Russell, Kieran Pollard, and actually they didn't really come to the party at all. And it was kind of a bit of a, I don't know, like a a kind of retirement procession, really, unfortunately. I think that they, to me, were just really disappointing.
Yeah. You ever go, like, you ever look back when you were young, went somewhere like Legoland, and it felt massive, went on like the roller coaster at Legoland, and it felt huge. Then you go back when you're older, and you're like, oh, this is all tiny. It was a bit like that, except obviously the aging process doesn't quite work in this metaphor. But looking, it was like the West Indies had shrunk from massive to small.
Yeah, there was no dance. I liked the dance last time. It was just like the aura of the West Indies team just wasn't there for this World Cup, and it was just quite disappointing.
Yeah. So that's that. Moments, players, flops, Australias of the tournament.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.